talk about the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities. How do you think it can be strengthened?
Well, the Act established the National Commission for Persons with Disability, but the commission has not been well funded, I would say, because in government, that commission has one of the least amounts in this budget, in the 2024 budget. Mind you, it is estimated that the persons with disability in Nigeria there are more than 31 million. So for the very meager amount that commission has to implement the act, I think that's going to be very challenging. Yes, the commission actually has a strong leadership and they are doing a lot of things. I'm very familiar with what they are doing. I think with support from the executive and from the legislature, we can get many more things out of them. That's my opinion on that.
All right, then, just like you rightly pointed out, in October, President Tinubu signed the instrument of ratification of the protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights and the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in Nigeria. Right, like I asked earlier, how well is this being implemented as well?
Well, to start with, you know, that's a very interesting point in the sense that I said the Disability Act in Nigeria we think is inadequate, and we understand why it was passed. Because, you know, when you are trying to make a bill, it's like making a sausage. Sometimes it's messy, and you just want to get some things passed because you are dealing with 360 members, and that's very challenging sometimes. But we can see the gaps clearly now since the bill is in existence. One, it doesn't clearly and specifically address the children with disabilities, and we are very passionate about that. Two, it doesn't specifically also address gender issues, like especially when it comes to women with disabilities. For example, we know there are two acts. We know we have the Nigerian Child Act, and we also have the VAP. We think in the Child Act doesn't specifically clearly addresses the children with disabilities, and the VAP Act does not specifically address violence against persons with disability. And we think that those are the areas that call for amendment. For example, we don't think that the penalty for a perpetrator that rapes somebody a woman that's on a wheelchair or somebody that is visually impaired, we don't think the penalty should be the same. So yes, we're glad about that AU Charter because it's actually larger than our own act. So it gives us an opportunity to amend our own act, considering the fact that the president has already signed that charter. So yes, implementation, I think yes, the Nigerian Disability Act first, before further amendments to include what is in the African Charter.
But what other international conventions on people with disabilities do you think Nigeria needs to domesticate?
Well, I mean, those are the two major ones. You know, you have the United Nations Convention, then you have the AU Charter, and you have the Nigerian Disability Act. Unfortunately, very few countries have signed the AU Charter, and then we're looking to doing one for the ECOWAS. Yes, those are the main ones that will address these issues. But I think that what we have on the ground is sufficient enough for us to make the lives of our people better. I mean, when you look at it, it says you cannot discriminate against persons with disability. So, and that discrimination, if you do it, if you are convicted, you are sanctioned with an option of imprisonment. It says that if you're a person with disability, not if or but, shall be able to access public buildings. We should ask ourselves how many of these folks can actually access public buildings. I don't really want to be specific on that, but ask yourself, if you are going to a public place, how many of the public places actually have ramp or elevators for them to have access? If you are not living in that particular space, you may not understand how severe that situation is. It talks about transportation. These days we are hearing that there are going to be a lot of buses coming out in the system. What is of interest to us is that these buses will they be accessible to the physically challenged. That is very, very important. It talks about aviation, how comfortable are folks when they are trying to get onto the plane. It talks about even sea and land. And the next section, it talks about education. It says there should be an unfettered right to education for persons with disability up to secondary school level. But you'll be amazed how, because of fund, it's very difficult for such persons to even be in school. Most of the let me use the word most. A lot of the out of school children are actually children with disabilities. So if we're trying to reduce the number of out of school children, we need to focus in that direction. So now, when you go further than that, then it talks about employment. And one of the areas that I actually like in the law is when it talks about prioritization. So when a person with disability is on a queue, should be given preference. When there's the emergency or disaster, they should have preference. So these things, I'm sure to some folks it sounds really alien, but by the time there's a lot of advocacy, and with your help, like this kind of program, I think that we're going to get to places. And thank you for the question.
All right. But how will you describe the relationship between the National Assembly and people with disabilities?
Excuse me?
How will you describe the relationship? How will you describe the relationship between the National Assembly and people with disabilities? Yeah,
well, yeah. I think for many years it was the adversary, but I have to say now, it's very different now. I think that that community is all pumped up now, that they can feel that there's going to be a change. Why? They know that the time to implement the act is coming on board. They have seen the moves in the House from the Speaker, and that the Speaker is a Speaker that very much loves persons with disability. They have seen the move from the Presidency, that the President has appointed SSA on disability matters. So they think that with the collaboration and everybody on board, this time around, things should be better than they were before. But yes, the answer is that, and they think our committee is very engaging, and we're very involved, and they believe us, and they think that we're going to stand up for them. Yes, I think it's a positive relationship.
Right. So still talking about inclusivity, the president promised an inclusive government for all Nigerians. But my question is, how is the National Assembly working with the administration to achieve this purpose?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the renewable agenda, that the vulnerables will be carried along. And I know personally that is very passionate about that. When it comes to poverty, significant part of the poor and extremely poor people are persons with disability. 58% of women are persons with disability. So those are the data that are out there. Significant portion of the children are children with disabilities. So when you are talking about the vulnerable group, that's the punch that makes that particular level. So we think the executive, looking at the budget, I think the direction is good. There's a lot of intensity in trying to solve some of these issues. The question is that, are you going to say that we are 100% satisfied with the situation? And then that would not be exactly right. I think it's a work in progress. We're going to have a continuing collaboration with the executive. So wherever we think that needs improvement, we're definitely going to work on that.
Right. So finally, before I let you go, Honorable Dawodu, how will you describe the way the administration is handling the economy?
The way
this administration is handling the economy. How will you describe the way this administration is handling the economy?
I think the way to look at the situation is where were we and where are we now? I think we were in a very, very precarious situation. We were not in a good place at all. It almost seemed like we were going into the abyss. But you can see now that there's a plan, there's a clear path to getting the economy for. I know it will be foolhardy for us to say everything is rosy and the constituents are happy. No, that's not what we hear every day. I think it's very tough, and I think it's very challenging, and I think things are very difficult, especially for the less privileged. So, and I'm very sure that the president is aware of the challenges that we're facing. But look at the direction, you know, when we are talking about leadership, it's not just waking up and making pronouncements. You know, it's about strength, it's about courage, it's about doing the right thing, no matter whose ox is God. It's about being ready to make very tough decisions, even if it's going to make you less popular. And in all these regards, he has scored very high. And I think very soon, New Year, we should be on a better trajectory to a growing economy like we've not seen before. Thank you.
Right, great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.